up getting my first boyfriend, but I never really liked him like that. I just thought he was a nice guy. He's not gonna do me wrong. I like him as a friend. I'll pursue it because I just wanted to be like, oh, I have a boyfriend. Oh, I had my first kiss. Oh, I've done this. Oh, I've done that. Because of all these like cultural, high school, like almost like a bucket list I thought I had to complete, you know what I mean? I really did hurt him when I ended it. It was really hurting me when I ended it because I genuinely loved this guy as my best friend, and I had manipulated myself and him and basically make it seem like, oh no, I love him in a more romantic sense when I didn't. And that's why it hurt so much when I ended things with him, and he went through a lot of shit on his own and I went through a lot of shit on my own. Now I've created this bubble of depression, but outside of that is this bubble where I think I'm in love with this white guy. I think my life is great. I have these friends and I'm like adapting. I started rugby, doing all these different things, but not realizing that because I'm not taking the correct steps to better myself, the bubble of depression is still there. It never went anywhere. It's still a clear bubble, but because you can see through it, a lot of times you think it's gone or you can ignore it, but you really can't. It's still almost suffocating. I remember when me and this white guy broke up, that was almost like the last domino that fell. And that's when I really started hurting like a lot more intensely. And that's when I started cutting myself. And now it's grade 12. I'm trying to get into university. My grades haven't been the greatest. They're just okay, like average. And there's a certain type of pressure that's put on. You have to get good grades. You have to take these certain courses. You have to do this type of thing to get into like this school, this program, whatever. I'm thinking like, well, shit. My grades are like below average, not even at average, and I want to go to university. I imagine all these things for myself, but I am hurting so much. And I remember the first time I cut myself was just because I thought I was so sad at this point that I was like, you know what? I don't think I can physically feel anything. And that's where it kind of comes from for a lot of people, definitely not everyone, but it's just the fact that you become numb with sadness and you can't feel anything outside of that. And you're like, I just want to feel something other than numbness and sadness, or like numbness and anger. And that's where the cutting started. I think I still have like a tiny little scar on my arm. My cuts never got crazy bad, but they were just like, you know what? I don't think I can feel the pain. Let me try something. I just want to feel something different. And it was true. I was literally so sad at this point that I could not feel anything. When I used to cut myself, it did not hurt. I would see the blood come out. I wouldn't necessarily go crazy deep or anything like that. It just was a way for me to release all this negative energy where I didn't know how to release it through my voice and use verbal communication. Even though technically I ended things with him, I felt like he's the one that didn't want me, you know what I mean? And now it's like, what's wrong with me? It was almost like something that I did, or like something about me. And now I'm coming down on myself even harder about my self-image. Not that any guy had ever called me fat or any girl had ever called me fat or anything like that, but it was just like, you know what? I can't pinpoint what went wrong, so I'm just gonna try and like really criticize myself at every single angle, and hopefully I'll find the right angle and be like, this was where I was going wrong, I should fix this part. But not realizing that it wasn't anything I did. There is no specific angle where I can see myself like fucking up. Almost like not, I don't want to say perfect. No one's perfect and no one should try and achieve to be perfect, but almost like just not reality, I want to say. And it was just very hard. I almost want to say I don't want to give this white guy any credit, because it's not because of him I necessarily started cutting, but because that was the most recent event in my life that was contributing to my depression and my anxiety. And I was cutting myself. I didn't really want to tell anybody, and I didn't want to show anybody because my close friends and my family knew this guy, and I didn't want them to assume that, oh, she's like reeling over this guy and she's like oh, so upset because of the breakup. No, it wasn't any of that. It was just that was just the last domino, like I said before. When it fell over, I was like, I'm numb, like that's it. This huge depression bubble that I was in, I was starting to fog up on the inside, I want to say, where you can't see past it anymore. That's just what it is, and you're numb and hurting, and I was cutting myself, crying, just going through all that shit. And I was single after that for, I want to say 4 or 5 years, and not just single, but I never went to my people pleasing stages anymore. I never went to, oh, I want to try and get a guy, oh, I want to try and be friends with her, or oh, I should do this for my friends, where I would put myself in a situation that would contribute to my depression just because I wanted something out of somebody else. Because I realized that I came to this high school to find a different side of me, and I hadn't even done that. As I'm going through all this, I am growing and I am changing, and it is really helping and into molding me into a different person. But I wasn't really trying to figure out who I was anymore. And I was like, I really don't want that anymore. So fast forward a year or two is when I made my Instagram post with the hashtag Belle Let's Talk Day, because at the time we were like a year and a half into university, and a lot of my friends are now going through a similar situation where like school is really rough, work is really rough, and my brother was going through a rough time. And I was like, I had never shared any of that with anybody before, not because I was ashamed, not because I was like scared of what they'd think. At that point, I really didn't give a fuck. I just realized that I hadn't shared it because I was like, it's just about the feeling of being alone and thinking that no one else is going through this. And that seems like such a almost like bold and empty statement, because you know that's not possible. There are almost 8 billion people on Earth. Someone else is definitely going through the same things you are. But there's just something about being around people and still living your life, but being and feeling alone, where you can't really pinpoint where it's coming from, or if that's even really what you're feeling. Just that thinking that, oh, well, no one else is going to feel the same way I do is like, well, I'm not going to necessarily share it then. But then when I did share my Belle Let's Talk post, I thought it was a great way, because I had also stopped going on social media and stuff like that. I still had my Snapchat, just like the regular stuff, but I deleted my Instagram. That was a new account I had made, and I thought that was a great way to start it off, because I was like, you know what, I am really at this point trying to really genuinely figure out who I am now, and I really want to go down this path finally, where I thought I was going down this path, but I really wasn't. I ended up sharing that, and that's the post you really liked and asked me to come talk about, which I'm very, very appreciative of, for giving me this platform to talk about it.
No, you're welcome.
Yeah.
And I think, what, as you mentioned, what you went through is something that someone somewhere will go through eventually, or someone somewhere has gone through, but they just don't have the voice. How significant was it for you to really, pour your emotions out there and be quite vulnerable and tell people what you went through? Because not many people knew. Even your closest friends, as you mentioned, they didn't know, like the cutting stuff, like you kept it to yourself. So how significant was that post?
I think that even outside of high school, no matter what university you decide to go to, you and your friends spread out. And at this point, I'm still in contact with some of my beloved friends from high school and before that. But the significance of my post was that I also have all these new friends that I am making some sort of connection to, and I do have a very close relationship with. But I also want them to feel like that they can open up to me, because I am trying to open up to them. And it's not even necessarily just about anyone that I'm already close to or that I already know. I had made that post because it was my new Instagram. I was adding all these new people, all these different people in my new classes in university, people that are just an acquaintance, whatever. I just wanted them to know that because I have gone through something like this, that if they ever felt like they needed to, they can reach out to me. they can come to me. They can feel like, you know what, I feel like I'm totally alone in this experience, and I feel like no one will understand me, but she seems like she's also had something kind of similar to this, or she went through her own type of shit that would make it a more comfortable environment for someone to reach out. Because I, again, very grateful for all my privileges and luxuries that I have in my life, was very lucky to eventually come out of my depression bubble. And I think I'm gonna try and talk about how I did that and stuff too later on, but just coming out of that and not realizing that these little steps that I'd been taking since the start of university, and I want to say since the summer after high school ended, did help me a lot, and did help me. I basically helped myself get out of this depression bubble, but not everyone can do that, and not everyone has the same type of resources, like energy, just time, anything to put into the situation, and money, because therapy does help a lot. I think I went to like a couple therapy sessions very recently actually, but not everyone can do it, and I was never fully diagnosed with depression. All this entire story was just my 3-year long depressive episode, I want to call it. Yeah. Because as much as I do still struggle with anxiety and other things, I realized that a lot of my heightened emotions were also coming from a chemical imbalance and a hormonal imbalance in my body. It contributes to a lot of girls and their depressions, or any trans people that are going through hormonal therapy, or basically anyone that is creating a hormone imbalance in their body with any type of drug, prescribed, whatever, that they don't realize is making these senses heightened. And because of that, they don't know how they can reach out, and they don't know where they can go to figure all this stuff out. And I just wanted, and to be honest, it was a very long caption in my post. I didn't expect anyone to read it, really. I was like, but even if that one person reads it and it does help that one person just send me a quick message, or feel like, oh, in the future I'll think about her if I want to talk to anybody, I was like, I've done my job. And or the post has done its job. I mean, I can't remember, but I'm sure I got a lot of really good responses from everybody in the comments and my DMs and everything, but I wasn't fishing for any of that, you know what I mean? It's just that these people were nice enough to be like, wow, you're so strong, whatever. But I just wanted for that one person, for those 2 people, whatever, to know that they have a comfortable seat in my home, that they can, if they ever need it, come by and like say whatever they need to with no judgment. Just someone who is able to understand.
So what changes have you made to your lifestyle since your recovery?
I want to say very recently I've become a lot more spiritual. I wasn't always like that. I mean, I did really try and stick to my religious faith when I was going through a hard time, but it's really hard to reach out into the unknown in the universe and put your faith in something that isn't physically there. There's no proof of it existing. So as much as that stuff did help in some sense, I started to really just put my mind to a few things instead of absolutely everything. So I mentioned earlier that I didn't talk to any guy or any girl because I'd also didn't realize that I was struggling with my sexuality, and I didn't understand why. I kind of find some guys attractive, but I really find a lot of girls attractive, and I didn't understand any of that. Just focusing on myself and on a couple of friends and my school or just my work, just something that was bringing me my little pieces of happiness throughout the days, helped me slowly, instead of snowballing a emotion of sadness, it was snowballing something great. It was snowballing my gratitude towards life, my gratitude towards just being able to make money at my part-time job, or my gratitude at, I got accepted into the university that I wanted. It was just the little things that I was looking forward to every day that were helping basically reverse the snowball effect and create a balanced line of where my calm emotions lie. And just being able to basically reverse engineer this ball of depression that I had created, the snowball effect also worked exactly the same way for the little things I did, like, oh, you know what? My class got canceled. My prof wasn't there. Great. I have an extra hour. I'm just going to fuck around. Like, you know what I mean? Just very, very, very little things, because it's really hard to look forward to something when you don't have the luxury of having it. Like time, money, food, resources, anything. But it's just, there is something good about your day, and it's really hard to see it at first. It's genuinely really, really hard. But just even like, you know what, great, now I can go to sleep, you know, I don't have to stay up all night to do this. Even that is something that you can look forward to. I had slowly started to open up my mind and educate myself on all these different things and aspects of life and points of views and just different things that were slowly putting my pieces back together. And me realizing that, oh, I identify as a bisexual, and then, oh, I identify as a pansexual, because I was like, you know what? I have struggled so hard to get attention from certain people when I'm willing to give my love and attention to everybody. And I didn't understand that there is a name for that. It's called pansexual. It's when you want to love somebody romantically, physically, whatever it is, no matter their sexual orientation or their sexual preference. It was slowly dawning on me that, why am I always trying to force something that isn't up to me? Once I started slowly realizing that, things started to change. But it's also like, because so many different things contribute to that depression, everything doesn't go away. You think, oh, I'm still stuck there. You're not. I promise you, you're not. I'm still very self-critical about everything I do, about the way I dress, my weight, my hair, like absolutely everything. That's all still somewhat there, but it's less of a life or death situation. And it's more like, you know what? I'm taking my own time to like shape and become something that is on me, and that's why I'm going to place these boundaries where I want them to, and whoever likes to can come forward. If they can handle those boundaries, great, you can stay. If not, I am no longer going to try and people please, come after you and try and force something that I genuinely can't. And that goes for school, work, any type of stress that is an outside factor that you are not contributing to yourself. Because self-sabotage is also a very big thing when you have like anxiety and depression, is when you think that like, oh, well, there's no way out of this anyway, so like fuck school, I don't care about school. Or like, oh, well, fuck, like work is already stressing me out so much, I'm just gonna keep calling in sick, or like keep trying to avoid it, or like trying to put yourself in a situation where you're hurting yourself even more without realizing. Slowly all of those things will go away.